welcome to everybody watching today live, and also those of you watching online later. This is a fireside chat with a Dev grad, Emma Kennedy. My name is Caitlin Scott. I'm a lecturer in the department, and I'm very pleased to welcome Emma here this morning, who's joining us all the way from Zambia, and is going to be talking about some of her career experiences. Emma graduated from Dev in 2014, having studied development with anthropology and politics. Your dissertation focused on Zambia, didn't it? And that's also where you now are. So over to you, Emma, to tell us how you got there.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. Yes, so as Caitlin said, my name is Emma and I'm currently living in Zambia, and I have been pretty much since the end of university. So I think I'd kind of like to start off by saying that if any of you have ever felt like you can't do something, or that you're an imposter, I'd like to let you know that when I received the email from David Girling to say, "We'd love for you to talk about your life and your career," my instant reaction was, "Me? Why?" Then it was only when I spent some time and I was forced to reflect on my life that I kind of took stock to see what I've been doing for the last 10 or 12 years. And I realised I've been on quite the journey. Planning for this talk has made me relive some of the moments which I just didn't take in at the time. There's always the age-old question when we're asked from when we're little, and it's, what would you like to do or be when you grow up? And for many of us, I don't think that question really ever gets answered. It changes, it gets altered by your path, your mindset changes, and you discover different things along the way that influence the answer to this question. In 2011, as you can see from this picture, I arrived at UEA as a fresh-faced 18-year-old, eager to discover more about the world and about development. And since graduating, I've spent the last 11 years raising money for worthwhile organisations in the NGO sector in Zambia. I think when I was 8 or even 18, if somebody had said to me, "You're going to be a fundraiser when you grow up," I would have said, "Oh, what?" And I think that kind of proves my point. At the end of my second year at UEA, I was availed the opportunity to do development work experience. With my focus of study being sub-Saharan Africa, I decided to quite literally stick a pin in a map of Southern Africa and see where that pin stuck. The pin was stuck, proud as punch, in Zambia. I then started to research organisations where I could carry out my DWE and do something meaningful at the same time. I found a small organisation on the ground in Zambia where I could support their work and make an impact, whilst also enhancing what I'd learnt in the lecture halls. I planned to be in Zambia for about 6 weeks, which inevitably ended up a lot longer. And I actually ended up writing my dissertation in a backpackers in Livingstone, approximately 10 kilometres away from the magnificent Victoria Falls. In hindsight, that's probably why I didn't do quite as well as I should have done. After returning from my DWE, I finished what was left of my last year at university. I loved my final year, and I had been able to continue volunteering in the UK for the organisation that I had done my DWE with, launching fundraising campaigns and liaising with individual donors. I was able to keep this connection whilst I was in the UK and be able to stay in touch with the work that I had done in the field in Zambia. I swiftly made plans to return to Zambia with the organisation that I did my DWE with after I had graduated, which you can see on my slides just now. I had kind of planned to stay in Zambia for a while to see what had happened, but that plan didn't really turn out how I expected it to. I returned to the UK in November 2014 with my tail between my legs, another few months of experience under my belt, and a great tan. I had been applying for jobs and making contacts, but sadly to no avail. In a complete 180-degree turn of events, I ended up working in the tourism industry in a ski resort in France. A far cry from my dream of working for an NGO in Africa, but a lot of fun nonetheless. Although this was a complete diversion from my ideal career path, it taught me a lot, such as leadership skills and problem solving. I worked seasonal jobs for about 18 months between France and Italy, and I absolutely loved it. Whilst I was doing what I now know was my last season, I found a job opportunity, and the job was in Zambia. This was my sliding doors moment. I had been offered a promotion to be resort manager, and the day that I was leaving the resort for the end of the season, I received the email to say I had got the job in Zambia. Bizarrely as it seems, making the choice to choose which job to take was actually an incredibly difficult decision to make. The job progression in tourism was uncapped, and I really enjoyed the diverse and fast-paced work, but my heart was secretly in Zambia. I took the job in 2016, and in September I ventured back to Zambia to work as a fundraising and administration manager for an education charity. I worked tirelessly to gain funding from individual donors, manage high net worth funders, and no 2 days were the same. I managed to grow the income of the charity significantly, assist with major capital projects, design programmes with the community and team, and navigate COVID-19, and come out the other side of it with no drop in income for the charity. Having focused on education during my studies at UEA, spending 5 years working at an education charity was a fantastic first step into the development world after university. In 2021, I was approached by a rapidly growing public health NGO. After 5 years at the education charity, I was ready for a change. They were looking for a fundraiser and I was encouraged to apply. I underwent a rigorous interview and application process, and thankfully I got the job and transitioned from education into public health, a field I knew very little about. Here I was pushed to engage in many continuous professional development areas, and after 2 years as the fundraising manager, I transitioned into the role of Head of Impact and Communications. In 2024, I made the decision to apply for a fundraising role for a wildlife conservation organisation, and since September last year, I have been working for the Zambian Carnivore programme as their grants and fundraising manager. Working in conservation has been yet another learning curve, and despite having fundraising experience under my belt, I'm still learning the ropes. You'll notice that this was yet another gear shift for me in terms of fields. However, my job titles have mostly stayed the same. Fundraising roles are diverse, and the skills I have are transferable and allow me to have flexibility to be able to explore different NGOs and fields of work. Even in my short career in development feels more competitive than before, but it still remains a connections game. Even when I'm not at work, I'm constantly networking, whether it's chatting to someone in a coffee shop or an airport. And this has led to many opportunities that have otherwise I might not have known about. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned throughout my career is to ask questions. It seems simple, but actually this is something that's taken me a really long time to feel comfortable to do. Increasing your knowledge through learning from others is really important. People are amazing resources. I've found in the workplace that asking questions has been integral for success. Often we feel that we're putting people out when we have questions or need clarity on something, but the reality is that this just isn't true. If you don't ask, you don't get, you don't discover, and you don't learn. Asking questions refers to expanding your knowledge, but as well, it refers to being able to advocate for yourself and others. As I mentioned earlier, education has always been a passion of mine, and I'm lucky enough to hold the position of Chair of the Board of Governors for the education charity which I worked for, which brought me out to Zambia for my first career job. This role allows me to provide oversight and expertise, as well as problem solving and facilitating change, whilst not being involved in the day-to-day operations, combining my passion and the skills that I've learned over the years. This position, as well as having experienced multiple sectors of development, has enabled me to focus my skills. Primarily, this is fundraising, but what I've also found is that I enjoy putting systems in place and finding gaps where organisations can improve and be able to run at better capacity. My dream one day would be to do this full time, to be able to work with like-minded people and use our skills to improve development projects and practices around the world. I think this would be extremely challenging, but equally rewarding. This leads me on to one of my final points. As we know, life is about balance, and as you grow and change as a person, so does your life balance. I've recently become a mum, which has been one of the most incredible journeys of my life so far, but also the hardest. Not only because of the lack of sleep, but because of the shift in balance. Being a mum, a wife, and a career woman is awesome, but I won't pretend that it's not difficult. Sometimes I feel each day I do better at one of the three, but it's a practice, and advocating for that fair balance has been key. Life is short, and finding a job that you love is crucial, and it's okay for you to deviate from your field for a bit, take a break, or change paths completely. So to wrap up, my advice would be to reach out to people, get to know others, start connecting, and take any opportunity that looks good to you and fits with your values. Work to live, don't live to work, and find people who support you, care for you, and can complement your abilities. Be yourself once you've figured out what that is and who that is, and most importantly, ask lots of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was really, really lovely kind of a view of your life. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Nice, lovely ending there with cute baby and everything. So are there any questions? We can open up to any questions from the audience.
So hi Emma.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the really interesting overview there. One of the things that stood out for me as a careers advisor is lots of dev students just assume if they don't get straight into exactly what they want on a permanent basis, that it's not worked out. So it's great to hear your journey of being in Zambia, not finding a role, the ski season, decision making. So good to hear that there's lots of steps to it. But the question I had was around networking. We ran a session on networking, excuse me, earlier this week, I forgot which day now, and one of the themes that came out was people were saying that they didn't want to approach people because they didn't really have anything to offer. It was very one-sided. What can I get from this? And we talked about mutual benefit. So you were talking there about the importance of networking and conversations and ask the questions. What tips would you have for students to think about that mutual benefit, being able to be reciprocal, particularly when you're at an early stage of your career and you don't bring kind of years of experience to that networking?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you. I think the key to networking, I guess, one of the main things is that the topic that people know the most about is themselves and what they do, right? So it kind of links back to what I said about asking questions, and hopefully being able to ask somebody questions that you want to network with will then lead into a conversation that is kind of flowing and feels mutually beneficial. I think as well, sharing your goals and your views and your interests with that person to find some kind of common ground is also really key to networking. And I think it can be really nerve-wracking approaching somebody, especially if it's in a bit of a bizarre environment. Like, I've spoken to people that I've overheard talking about something that I'm particularly interested in or whatever in a coffee shop, and you kind of feel a bit awkward going, sorry, I wasn't eavesdropping, but actually, do you know what? I think most people are really, really approachable, and most people are really, really open to having a discussion and hearing what you have to say. So I think again, going back, asking questions and finding that common ground is really key to successful networking, and also to realize that not all networking is going to lead you somewhere, but it's interesting to meet new people.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was going to ask is we talked about networking perhaps being different in different cultures. So have you found a difference in the different countries that you've worked in?
Yeah, so I suppose my experience is probably really limited to the UK and to Zambia mostly. But I think networking in general, I think people are really interested in, if you're open enough to approach somebody, I think people are always really interested in hearing your story and being asked theirs. So I think that is definitely a kind of common ground across most cultures, to have that. So yeah, I think that would probably be my contribution to that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Really, really good point. I was going to ask a very similar question, and I think, Emma, one of the things that you probably remember as an undergraduate is that people are very shy, but you're so right that people like talking. It's very difficult to ask a rude question. The chances are by the time you've thought of the question, it's going to be about them, it's going to be about what they do, and it's going to be polite, and people were like, oh, someone's interested in what I do, and people like that, don't they? I mean, we know as researchers, we go and prod and ask people about their lives, and they're like, oh yes, I'll tell you a bit, this. Anyway, I think David wanted to come in.
Yeah, I suppose I found that really, really fascinating, Emma, so thank you, and congratulations on your new baby. But the question that I suppose I would ask is going back to your hall's bedroom photo, if you could go back there right now, what would you do differently in your degree or even your career if you could start all over again?
Gosh, that's quite a hard one. I think The main thing is which is a really hard thing to say or to think about when you're in the kind of that situation, but I think to not panic too much about the direction of your life, especially when it kind of takes a bit of a left field course. I think you kind of find yourself on a track that you maybe didn't ever think you would be on, and that's also okay. And I think putting a lot of pressure, I think there's a lot of pressure on people these days to kind of have that ideal career path and be really following a dream, which is excellent. But I think sometimes that dream changes, or your path is altered, and I think that that's okay. I don't think that if there's a slight deviation or something goes awry here or there, that actually to take that as a learning curve and make the most of it, and not be in a situation where you're like, oh, I really wish that I was in that job but I'm not, and to really take the opportunity that you're in and the place that you're in at the time and really try and get the best out of it. I think that's what I would say.
And excellent advice it is. Would you do anything differently in your degree? Would you have done anything differently? I think it's probably formed the basis of a lot of my the things that asking questions. I think I didn't actually utilize resources that I had at my fingertips, and the people that I was surrounded by, and I think I probably could have spoken more, asked more questions, been less shy, all of the things that we've kind of spoken about, and had more conversations, been more open, and I didn't really have much idea of what I wanted to do when I was at university, if I'm completely honest, and I think my path has kind of just happened in one way or another. I didn't necessarily have a dream or an ideal job in mind, so I think asking for advice and asking for support, obviously, people are huge resources, and the types of people who are, whether you're a lecturer or a researcher or whatever, I think making the most of having contacts and people like that in your life is really, really, really key. So I think that probably would have been one thing that I wish I'd done, is to take advantage of you guys a bit more. Yeah, and I know that I'm guilty of that as well. I think back to my degree many years ago, and I had all these dreams and societies that I was going to join and everything, and then something gets in the way, or a gig comes up, and so you don't go to that society meeting. And then you look back and you regret it, don't you? But as you say, we all find our own path, and it sounds as though you're very, very happy in yours. So that's great to hear.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions out there? I have one, if I may. You talked, obviously you've done a lot of things around funding and partnerships and grants and quite serious and responsible financial reporting and that kind of thing. And I wonder, I guess a couple of things, like how difficult it was, I think, to imagine that sort of a role when you were at university. You said, I think you said something to the effect of, I wouldn't have imagined I'd be doing that. But it's a huge area in development, isn't it? And I just wonder if you can say anything to students who might be watching this that want to understand what skills are useful. And you always mentioned how transferable it is across different areas, which is really, really important. Like, what would you say to them about getting prepared for it and how useful it is?
Yeah, I think a lot of my role is writing. I spend a lot of time writing, a lot of time researching, quite a lot of networking with donors in terms of kind of chatting to them about what they want to see, how that can work with the organisation and the programmes that we're running, working with the team, with communities to develop programmes. But I think for kind of grant writing and funding, a lot of it is a team effort as well. Obviously, you are primarily the fundraiser or whatever, but I think it's not necessarily a solo role. There's a lot of support and teamwork that goes into it, and I think that's kind of the basis of a successful grant or successful fundraising pitch, is having that kind of real whole team support behind you. But yeah, a lot of my time is writing and chatting to the teams, making sure, as a fundraiser, I'm not necessarily on the ground doing field work, project work all the time. So it's kind of a lot of support from the on the ground team and the field team to get the information that I need for reports, and speaking to donors and kind of grant givers to find out what they need, there's a lot of focus on innovative ideas at the moment, so kind of developing those with the team as well. So yeah, there's a lot.
Well, it sounds fun. And I mean, is there anything you wish you'd maybe learned in Dev, or any courses? Did you do anything on project design and those sorts of modules that might have been useful?
Yeah, we did do one. I can't quite remember what we did it on at the moment, but I know we did a group project, which I think it does set you up. Like even if it's not necessarily what you're going to do exactly in the future, I kind of feel like forming that basis. And you can't learn everything at school or university. You know, there's a lot of on the job learning, and I think even now in my new role, I'm learning a lot of different things that I didn't know before, even having been in fundraising for a number of years. So and the the kind of fundraising game is always changing and evolving, and it's kind of keeping up with that, and again asking questions and finding out what people are looking for. And I think having a base of skills, being able to write, being able to kind of interpret what people are asking for, being able to read proposals to see that, you know, are they or kind of like grant applications, are they something that really do match with your organisation? Trying not to mission drift, really trying to not just go for the money, because sometimes that seems appealing, but actually, you know, you ultimately have to be able to carry out the projects and be able to report effectively. So I think kind of having that kind of critical eye on and being able to really, I suppose, challenge yourself in a way to say, yeah, this is maybe not the right thing to apply for, or this is not the right thing to report on. So there's kind of a lot of, I suppose, self and project scrutiny as well.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds interesting. I mean, it sounds like a lot of days must be quite different as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's important as well to get out into the field. And I think across my kind of 3 roles, my first role was a very heavy operational role, really involved in the day-to-day runnings of the whole organisation, not just fundraising. And then I kind of transitioned into more of a fundraising role when I worked for the public health organisation, but also it was very important for me to get out into the field to see the projects, and the projects were quite spread out across southern and western Zambia, so there was quite a lot of travel. And then now in my role, again, quite a lot of travel, a few different national parks and ecosystems that we work in. So being able to report on that and find out what the kind of programme needs are from the team, being able to be part of the team and in the field is also really important, as well as sat reading, writing and doing all of the kind of the day-to-day process that goes with reporting and grant writing. So
yeah. And that first role where you did quite a number of years, and you said it, very intensive kind of at the school.
Yeah.
Do you think that set you up that kind of really kind of forensic might not be the word, but a really good grounding in what goes on every day, the nuts and bolts, the kind of issues that small organizations face? Did you think that was a particularly useful grounding to then actually move forward into different kinds of,
completely, because being able to see the nuts and bolts of everything happening and the needs, and I think it's also really given me that kind of drive for oversight, and being able to make sure that I suppose being aware of how everything runs means that even when you transition into roles where you're not in that kind of operational role as much, it means that you're still very aware of how things are running and interested, and ultimately that's a really, for me, I find it a really interesting position to be in, to be able to kind of see the whole cogs of the organisation rather than just sitting kind of in that one lane. I think that really did set me up in a slightly broader role initially, and I think that's how a lot of people kind of start, is they start in a slightly broader role, and then they streamline once they find what they're good at, what their passion is, what they find interesting, and I think that's kind of seems to be, from various friends and people that I know in development, that seems to be quite a common theme, that people kind of start a bit broader and then they narrow down into kind of a more of a specialist area.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there was another question that was on kind of this, and I think you mentioned it towards the end of your talk, is that as a mother, you face that amazing challenge that most mothers do, which is how to manage the work-life balance. And I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that you'd like to share with the viewers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but it's really important. It gets easier for sure. I say that I'm a new mum because I still feel like one, but actually my daughter turns 19 months next week. So actually she's almost 2, but I keep thinking that I'm a new mum. Yeah, I had, during the first year of my daughter's life, I transitioned into a new role, which was a lot, but it was fantastic and a really good time to do it. Kind of trying to navigate everything. Yeah, it is a balance, but I think kind of communicating with obviously your partner and your the people that you work with as well. I'm in a fortunate position that I have a very flexible role in terms of being able to work from home and have that balance between working from home and working from the office, which is fantastic. But yes, but balance is key, and I think I did say in my talk that you kind of have to make sure that you really do have that balance, and you follow your dreams and your passion, and you're able to find the career that you want, but also that complements what you do outside of your career. And yeah, I think surrounding yourself by people who support you and support your journey and support your ambitions, whether that's personal or professional, is really, really important.
Yes, that sounds like very wise advice from someone quite young still, but yeah, very good. And I mean, it sounds like, I know one of the things a lot of people talk about is kind of for mothers, but also fathers, paternity and maternity leaves and rights and so on. What's that like in Zambia? I mean, working for different small organizations.
Yeah, so the kind of statutory maternity leave in Zambia is 14 weeks. So yeah, so it's quite short. So again, quite a juggling act. And obviously you I don't know, maybe I kind of thought that I'd just be able to do it all, and you can, but it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And going back to work after 14 weeks was really hard. You're kind of a completely different person, and you have another human to take care of who really needs you. And so it is, a bit of a balancing act, but but I suppose you do it, and that's it. And now here we are. So
and still smiling, which is the important thing. Yes, even though you may not have had much sleep for the last year. Well,
your body adapts.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Good. I don't know, did anyone else got any other questions they want to ask? I think we've been through quite a few of lots of maybe one last one. What do you see happening in the next 5 to 10 years of your career?
This is a really interesting one. Yeah, I think from I still feel very early career. I think my ultimate dream would be to perhaps set up my own kind of thing, looking at kind of policy and practice within organizations and governance kind of systems, that kind of area. I think for now I'm very happy with where I am. I've just started a new role which I'm really loving, and there's a lot of interest and kind of progression. So I think for now I'm happy where I am, but I think the ultimate dream would be to perhaps set something up to be able to support organisations, especially small organisations who perhaps don't have the capacity or the funding to be able to employ necessarily a multitude of different roles, to be able to support them, so to kind of offer that kind of, I suppose, strategic advice and kind of organisational strategic planning. So I think that would ultimately be something I'd be interested in doing in the future. But yeah, as I say, I still feel very early in my career. I know it's been over 10 years, but it still feels like there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting, those things that you find interesting, then the ideas in the back of your head for whenever it's the right moment. I think that those are the seeds of the next phase, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh well, fantastic. Great. Well, I think if there are no further questions, then we should probably wrap up. And I don't see any final thoughts you want to share with us, Emma, before we...
No, just thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure and a really nice blast from the past to be in touch with everybody again. And yeah, no, I hope that this has been interesting. And yeah, if anybody has any questions after this, please do feel free to reach out. But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for taking the time and telling us, so richly about your career path. And yeah, and very good luck with the rest of it. I'm sure you will be hearing from some dev students. So
Yes,
yeah,
please.
thank you in advance for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.